ग्रावा मधुमेह सरस्वती प्राज्ञेतर परिच्छेदम वचसैव करोति. I welcome you all in today's special lecture being organized by Shri R. Mukunda Lohia, Center of Sanskrit and Ethnological Studies of Maharashtra Vidyapith, and the lecture will be delivered by Dr. S.A.S. Sarma, and the chairperson for this session is Professor Nirmala Kulkarni. Both of them are here. तुमच्या सगळ्यांच्या माहितीसाठी त्यांचा थोडक्यात परिचय तुमचा मराठीतून करून देतो. प्राध्यापक शर्मा हे पॉंडिचेरी इथल्या फ्रेंच इन्स्टिट्यूटमध्ये रिसर्च ऑफिसर म्हणून कार्यरत आहेत. त्यापूर्वी त्यांनी कुंजूर राजांच्या आणि विखे शर्मांच्या मार्गदर्शनाखाली काम केलेलं आहे आणि विशेषतः वैदिक साहित्य, तंत्र साहित्य आणि त्या संदर्भात दक्षिण भारतातील वेगवेगळे हस्तलिखित जिथे सापडतात त्या हस्तलिखित परंपरांचा असा विशेष अभ्यास सरांचा आहे. त्याचबरोबर ब्रह्मस्वामीराव मठामधून जे स्थान केवळलेले आहे तिथेही अनेक तुम्ही कधी कधी बातम्यांमधून ऐकलं असेल तर सोमयज्ञांचं आयोजन केलं जातं. तर तसं आयोजन करण्यामध्ये त्याचं डॉक्युमेंटेशन करण्यामध्ये सुद्धा सरांचा पुढाकार असतो. त्या संदर्भातही त्यांनी काम केलेलं आहे आणि या पॉंडिचेरीमधल्या संस्थेत अनेक परदेशी विद्वान हे भेट देतात. त्या भारतीय वेगवेगळ्या ज्या काही सांस्कृतिक परंपरा आहेत त्यांचा अभ्यास करण्यासाठी त्यांच्यासोबत सहकार्याने अनेक प्रकल्पांवर सरांनी काम केलेलं आहे. सोमशंभू पद्धती नावाचा एक महत्वाचा जो ग्रंथ आहे त्याच्यावरचे त्रिलोचन शिवाजी टीका जे आहे त्याच्यावर सरांनी काम केलेलं आहे. त्यामुळे अशा काही महत्वाच्या आंतरराष्ट्रीय प्रोजेक्टवर पण सर काम करतात. ज्या वेळेला आपण त्यांना इथे निमंत्रित केलं व्याख्यान देण्यासाठी त्यावेळेला कुठल्या विषयावर व्याख्यान केलं होतं म्हणजे ते हस्तलिखित हा सगळ्यांचा आमच्या आवडीचा विषय आहे. विशेषतः वैदिक साहित्यापासून ते तंत्र साहित्यापर्यंत असे खूप मोठा जो आवाका सरांचा आहे त्याच्यामुळे आपल्याला सगळ्या जास्त चांगल्या पद्धतीने गोष्टी जाणून घेता येतील. त्यामुळे आपण निदान ह्या विषयावर सरांचं व्याख्यान आयोजित केलं आणि त्याला त्यांनी होकार दिला आणि ते आज उपस्थित राहिले. त्यामुळे त्यांचा विशेष मी आभार मानतो. त्याचबरोबर आजच्या अध्यक्ष प्राध्यापक डॉक्टर निर्मला कुलकर्णी ह्या सावित्रीबाई फुले पुणे विद्यापीठामध्ये CASS म्हणजे सेंटर ऑफ ऍडव्हान्स स्टडी इन संस्कृत हा जो विशेष विभाग संस्कृतच्या संशोधनासाठी स्थापन झाला होता त्या ठिकाणी UGC रिसर्च सायंटिस्ट या कार्यरत होत्या. आपल्याकडे सुद्धा अनेक वर्ष त्यांनी अभ्यागत प्राध्यापक म्हणून काम केलेलं आहे आणि कुलकर्णीबाईंचा सुद्धा विशेष अभ्यासाचा विषय हा अर्थातच वैदिक साहित्य त्यातही श्रौतयज्ञ हा विशेष अभ्यासाचा विषय आहे. पण त्याच्याबरोबर व्याकरण ही जी परंपरा आहे त्याचबरोबर विशेषतः वैदिक व्याकरणाची पदपाठ वेगवेगळ्या शिक्षा प्रातिशाख्य हाही त्यांचा विशेष अभ्यासाचा विषय आहे. वेगवेगळ्या प्रातिशाख्यावर त्यांचं काम आहे. त्याच्यामुळे त्यांना आपण अध्यक्ष म्हणून आज इथे घेण्याची विनंती केली आणि मला ह्या व्याख्यानाला इथे सगळेजण उपस्थित आहेत. म्हणजे प्राध्यापक कोलकर सर आहेत, शिल्पा समजले हे विशेष आवडीची गोष्ट अशासाठी की माझी PhD ही कोलकर सरांच्या मार्गदर्शनाखाली झाली आणि त्याला प्राध्यापक शर्मा आणि निर्मला कुलकर्णी हे रेफरी होते. त्याच्यामुळे हा एक मोठा योग आलेला आहे की सगळेजण आज इथे एकत्र आलेले. त्यामुळे मलाही खूप आनंद आहे आणि आपले आजी आणि माझी दोन्ही विद्यार्थी इथे उपस्थित आहेत. त्याच्यामुळे तुम्हाला सगळ्यांना हे व्याख्यान निश्चितपणे आवडेल आणि हस्तलिखितांची आपली जी परंपरा आहे त्याचा आणखी चांगला आवडता आपल्या लक्षात येईल असं मला वाटतं. आय रिक्वेस्ट द हेड ऑफ द डिपार्टमेंट डॉक्टर मंजुरी भागेराव टू वेलकम द डिग्निटरीज ऑन द क्लास. And without taking much time, I request Dr. Salma to begin with this. Namaste to all. Very respected professors are here. I'm so happy, extremely happy that the person came all the way for this process. Great joy to him. And madam, it's I think now I come to think of Maitrayani as Samhita, I have to think Mantra. So there are stalwarts to the Vedic literature. I'm so happy to be in Pune, and Ambaresh suggested me this was great. So good evening and namaste to one and all who are gathered here. And it's a pleasure to be here. So what I'm going to say is not meant to for the scholars sitting in front row because they know all these things. I am along with you, like a student, I will be exchanging with you. So many things what I am going to say you may be knowing, still it's a pressure to you. So I thought being Pune, when I think of Pune, especially the Vedic scholars comes into my mind. So I thought I should begin with the Sutra recitation before going to the presentation. This is the Vak Sutra. Om Devim Vachamachanayanta Devaha Kam Vishwarupa Pashavo Vadante Sano Mandreshu Janduhana Dhenur Bhagasmanupanishtatetu Yadvak Vadantya Vichetanani राष्ट्रे देवानां निशसादमन्त्रा चतस्रवोर्जं दुद्धुहे पयागुंसि कुस्सिदस्या परमं जगामा अनन्तामन्तां धृतिर्मितां महीम् यस्यां देवा अदधुर्भोजनानि एका अक्षरां द्विपदार्थं षट्पदाञ्च वाचं देवा उपजीवन्ति विश्वे वाजं देवा उपजीवन्ति विश्वे वाजी वाजं गन्धर्वा पशवो मनुष्याः वाजीमा विश्वा भुवनान्यर्पिता सा नो हवञ्जुषदामिन्द्रपत्नी वागक्षरं प्रथमजा ऋतस्य वेदानां मातामृतस्य नाभिः सा नो जुषाणो उपयज्ञमागाद् अवन्ती देवी सुभवा मे अस्तु या मृषयो मन्त्रकृतो मनीषिणः अन्वेच्छन्ते पास्तवसाश्रमेण तां देवीं वाचकं हविषा यजामहे सा नो ददातु सुकृतस्य लोके चत्वारि वाक्परिमिता पदानि तानि विदुर्ब्राह्मणाये मनीषिणः गुहात्रेणि निहितानेऽङ्कयन्ति तुरीयं वाचो मनुष्या वदन्ति. We just had a very interesting interaction with the Professor Babulkar before coming here. So he was mentioning of his bibliography on Bhagavad Purana. So coincidentally, this is the verse I always recite before I start anything. So let me recite that. Yonta pravishya mama vachamimam prasutta
सञ्जीवयत्यखिल शक्तिधर स्वधाम्ना अन्यांश्च हस्तचरण श्रवणत्वगादीन् प्राणान्नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यम्. I don't know whether I should explain this, maybe 1 minute I will spend on this verse because we had a good chat with the Bhagavad Purana. So, you know Dhruva is doing penance. So he don't know whom to penance, he is just doing penance. So the God appears. So actually Vishnu is asking Narada, how should I appear? In which form? Because the baby, he is very young. He should not be afraid. He should not be strange. So how should I? So he said, as you wish, as Mahavishnu. So he is going there with the Shankha Chakra Gada Padma. And the boy does not have anything to say. He is just standing. He is having no words. So the God is taking his conch and touching his cheek. Then he starts praying him. This is the first verse that is coming out of Dhruva. So you can see the whole philosophy embedded in it. So whatever we do is just because of him who is inside and making us do. So we never feel that we are doing it. It is because of him. He is standing here and giving instruction inside us, and we just follow his instructions. So today I thought, of course, the topic is mostly focusing with the manuscript and its tradition. But we have to remember that before the writing tradition, I am not going to talk about the writing tradition, the alphabets or letters, when it originated, what is the first manuscript, no. For me, the interesting part will be the transmissions. How the transmissions were happening. So you know that for the sake of students, as an introductory part, before starting to describe about the writing tradition, I thought of saying, especially we are in Pune, so let us go back with our Vedic tradition and get an introductory oral tradition. How we were transmitting knowledge through oral tradition, and then we move to manuscript tradition, and then we conclude. As we all know, the outstanding feature of the oldest Indian education, especially the Vedic education, is its orality that helped to preserve an unchanging body of text without the use of writing. This oral transmission were found to be more accurate than the written manuscripts. Because Bhagavad usually always say us that we should not depend, whenever we are preparing critical edition, we should also follow what is being said. In any Samhita we are reading Vedic text, we should not limit to it only the written tradition, we should also consult the oral tradition. Sayana, so what we are going to focus today is a written tradition manuscript. But you see how the writing is given a value here. Sayana, in his commentary on the Rigveda, confirms this. The text of the Veda is to be learned by the method of learning it from the lips of the teacher and not from a manuscript. So he totally prohibits the writing. The Mahabharata too asserts the importance of the oral learning. Veda Vikrayanas-chaiva, Vedanam chaiva dushakaha, Vedanam Lekhakas-chaiva, Tevai Nilayagamina. Those who sell the Vedas, those who disperse the Vedas, and those who write the Vedas go to hell. That means the writing of the Veda is prohibited. Reading from a written text is considered as the worst ways of reciting the Veda. Gidi Shighri Shirakkambi Tatha Likhita Patakaha Anarthajno Alpakandhascha Shadede Patakathamaha. The 6 worst kinds of reciter are the singer, the harrier, the head shaker, the one who reads from writing, the one who does not know the meaning, and the one with a feeble voice. So it totally rejects Likhita Patakaha. So one who reads from a written thing is never accepted. Then how they manage? Then it is amazing. And they don't have documents, it's not accepted. They don't have written materials. Then how they manage to preserve this great tradition for centuries, thousands of years. They followed several techniques for this. The eightfold techniques to preserve this Vedic text. For the perfection of memorization and preservation of the Vedic text in its purity, eightfold techniques are devised. Jada, Mala, Shikha, Rekha, Dujo, Dando, Jatho, Khanaha, Ashto, Vidudaya, Proktaha, Kramapurva, Anishitihi. So they defined various methods. These methods are nothing but repeating the text in a various orders. So we have to go into the detail that I am not going to do, but I am going to tell you that preserving a tradition had its own difficulties. So they have defined ways for that. Especially they are having a 8 pattern of recitation. So what it happens when it is recited in various patterns, the text becomes very strong, intact. So they defined a method for that. So you will see one of the recitation. These are all the words. You will see how it is repeated. So you have seen, how these words were repeated again and again. So similarly, that what I have shown is only one version. So what I mentioned 8 systems. So in that I have shown only one. So similarly, you have 7 remaining systems of recitation. So the text were, because of this repetition and in a way they were organized, so the text was so intact. So we had a long tradition of the same text. So it was recited, Ishetvo Jetva Bhagyapasto Bhagyapasto Devo Vasavita. 5,000 or 10,000 years back, what has been recited, it is the same text. That, of course, regionally the recitation style or how they are may be different, but the text is intact. This is the secret. So they defined so many methods for that. These are devised for the perfection of memorization and preservation of the Vedic text in purity. There are even now a large number of Vedic scholars proficient in Pada, Krama, Jada and Khana, but only a few who could recite the other forms, Mala, Datha, etc. The Varna Krama, this is not in the 8 pillars, this is another. The Varna Krama is interesting as it gives a complete phonetic description of each sound and shows the keen and accurate phonetic sense and knowledge of the ancient Indian Vedic scholar. And there are some even today being trained or capable of reciting this Varnakrama in Tamil Nadu, in Mannargudi and Manakkal. So in these places the Varnakrama is very interesting because a word is taken and all the word combination is recited. Vivaha, for example, Ikara, Vakara, what it happens? Vivaha. then vakara, ikara, vakara, so vivaha. Hakara, then all the anuswara, whatever swara also is included there. So you get a packed text without any disturbance. So if you know the Varnakrama, there will be no doubt. So while reciting, if you have a doubt, you can ask someone to recite the Varnakrama, then you can confirm what you are reciting is correct or not. This oral tradition, preserved intact, is known to exist in our land for the last several thousand years and still continue, and an inscription. I was talking to madam, so we always, when Sanskrit scholars, we think that inscriptions, these are to be studied by historians, not by us. But when we want to complete our research, you have to take into consideration of inscriptions, archaeology. So if you are taking a research topic, don't stop just with the topic you are having only with the literary sources. So you have to go out of it. If there are any historical evidence towards your research topic, bring that to your research, then only it becomes complete. You see, very interestingly, there is an inscription of 105 AD. So I am talking about an inscription of 105 AD. So you can imagine how many years back we are going. Confirms this further and proves the existence of Vedic scholars in South from 1st century AD itself. So we have a evidence by this 105 AD inscription. We know that there were Vedic scholars already existing in that part from 105 AD. This pillar inscription in 16 lines is the earliest known stone inscription in Bombay, Karnataka, throwing light on the Vedic culture prevalent in the Karnataka area, and is dated to 105 AD during the period of Shatavahana Emperor's rule. So what the inscription is telling is very interestingly, these are all having 18 lines I have described. The inscription tells us that a pillar was set up obviously to commemorate the death of a Vedic scholar named Somashas, who was able to perform as many as 80 Vedic sacrifices. So we are talking of an inscription of 105 AD, and that inscription mentions of a person who has already performed 80 yagas. Ashiti Vajaveya Kamyakratu Yajinaha. So the inscription is giving evidence of this person having performed 80 yagas. In his memory there is a pillar established. So this is a very interesting historical evidence to show that. Why I am bringing this inscription, because I want you also to have interest in these things. We should not limit our research just with the literary sources. You see, with the evidence of this inscription, we are able to say in that part there were Vedic scholars, and this inscription further shows that there were scholars who performed sacrifices also. Now, how they were imparting this, that is another interesting. Now we have university, colleges, for teaching. How they managed to teach and establish. There were several Vedic schools, they established, and one among them is very interestingly named as Ghadika Sthana. So, especially in Kanchipuram, we have inscriptions towards this establishment. The Pallava inscriptions mention an educational institution called the Ghadika or Ghadika Sthana, situated in the Pallava capital Kanchipuram, and some scholars observe that this Ghadika existed even during the early centuries of the Christian era. This Ghadika has been established and managed by the Pallavas. It attracted students from different parts of India for higher studies in Vedas and allied subjects. Here the examinations were conducted under the strict supervision of the officials of the kings, and the proficiency of individual scholars was credited accordingly. So you may wonder why these institutions are called Ghadika Sthana. So we have evidence for this name. According to Bhatta Someshwara, the commentator of the Vartika of Kumarila Bhatta, when candidates appeared for examination in the Vedas, they were asked questions based on different symbols denoting different portions of the Vedas, written on bits of palm leaves and placed in a Ghadika, otherwise known as Kumbha or pot. It appears that the educational institution Ghadika derived its name from the vessel Ghadika, by means of which arrangements were made to test the proficiency of the successful candidates in the Vedic examinations. For this Kumarila's text, you see the Vartika. So in a text, We also had a discussion of when we are reading a text, how the commentary should be important. This also you always have to keep in mind. So whenever you are reading a text, don't stop with the text. Go to its commentary tradition. You see here I am having a Kumarila Bhatta's passage, but if you read that, Aniyogeshu Vedanam Gadiga Marga Vrittishu, we will not be able to understand, no? We will not be Aniyogeshu Vedanam Gadiga Marga Vrittishu. This is what we are getting from the text. But you see how the commentary is helping us for that. Veda Kaushala Jnanartham Tat Veda Bhaga Chinna Lekhyani Ghadigayam Tumpakhyayam Nikshipya Tat Veda Bhaga Parikshakale Tanyadrishya Adrishta Lekhya Chinnitam Vedam Veda Bhagam Padaityadhedaraha Aniyujyante Iti Gadiga Margam Vrittino Aniyoga. So the passage commentary is clearly giving us explanation of what it is. So they used to have a pot and they used to make a shalaka or written slips and put it on it. So a student has to come, pick it up, and whatever is said, whatever is asked there, will have to be presented, and this becomes showing his qualification. So maybe the name Ghadiga Snana came out of this. That's what we discussed. Existence of Vedic traditions in Kerala. I belong to Kerala, so when we are talking of the, especially of oral tradition, I thought I should also mention about this unique tradition of Kerala. From the period of Sangam, Tamil literature itself, we know that there were Brahmin settlements in Kerala. For example, Agadanur verse 222 refers to Chennur, a village in northern Kerala, as a place where the sacrificial fire never extinguishes. This reference confirms that Vedic sacrificial performances were taking place in Kerala from a very early period. Also, then the renowned 7th century poet at the Pallava court in Kanchipuram praised the Brahmins of Kerala, indicating that Brahminical culture had firmly taken root in the region by the 7th century AD. So we have evidence of already Brahmin settlement there from the Sangam, and especially from 7th century. Again of the evidence of inscriptions, we know that there were Brahmins in Kerala who had a Vedic tradition. We should also note that the Vedic recitation by the Nambudiri Brahmins of Kerala follows a very distinctive tradition. Although the texts are the same as those used in other parts of India, learning and performing the Vedic chants in their unique manner is quite challenging. You can clearly appreciate this when you observe the teaching methods they follow. So these Kerala Brahmins, they follow a unique methods of teaching, not like in other regions. So that itself will show you how difficult it will be to learn according to the Kerala recitation system. Let us see. So you can understand to recite the text how difficult it is to learn and then to recite, and especially Kerala is having a unique way of recitation, so I thought of introducing you. So now what we have learned is why the Vedic tradition has prohibited writing. We are going to discuss on the Vedic tradition, but they managed the whole entire transmission to orality, and they managed also. So they had a very specific way of preserving that tradition with the, as we have seen with the Vikriti Pathas and also Varnakrama. They maintained it. So even without writing tradition, through the oral tradition, the Vedic text there. So we should, when we are discussing of manuscript, we should not forget the oral tradition that is before this writing tradition. So I thought of giving you an introduction to the oral tradition. Now we will move to the writing tradition. After this long tradition of oral learning, we developed a strong practice of writing and preserving text on palm leaves and birch bark. This did not replace the oral system which continued alongside it, but it helped to keep knowledge safe and pass it on to later generations. The manuscript tradition thus formed a bridge between oral heritage and written learning. So you also have to know that when we started to have manuscript, of course, today I went to Vaidika Samshodhan Mandal, so I have seen the catalog. So you have several manuscripts for each Samhitas. That means we are having a great written literature for the text. But do you think because we are having manuscript, the oral tradition has been discontinued? No. So the traditional way of teaching is still followed in the oral tradition only. But this written literature or written material is making us a bridge between the oral tradition and written tradition, because that also helps to preserve the tradition. So I am just going to give you a few photographs of how especially in the South India, the palm leaf is the most used material for writing. So they make from palm tree, they get this and they season it. So you can see they fry it, they boil it and they fry it, and then they get the soft the surface for writing. And these are some of the writing materials they use. I think as far as I know, this was the person who could write in manuscript. He is no more now, but this is the person who we met who was able to write in manuscript. I don't know now who can write in manuscripts. Maybe rarely we may find somebody. So I'm just going through some of the interesting manuscripts. So you have even manuscript with nice pictures, and also manuscript in various shapes like fish and like a garland. And you have sometimes these shapes also. Okay. So now we will be discussing on the writing methods. So I am not going to describe how they were written, what were the principles followed. No. I prefer to introduce a text, a corpus that gives us some information with regard to the writing related to manuscripts. How manuscripts were written, how it need to be preserved, what are the rules to be followed. All these we get from a text. So I thought of introducing that text to you which is less known, and then go into the details of what the text teaches. Now, we may turn to rather less known Shaiva religious text known as Shiva Dharma that gives us some interesting light on the writing tradition of ancient India. The collective name Shiva Dharma refers to a corpus of Shaiva text written in Sanskrit that expound the different types of rites, temple construction, public festivals, etc. So we have a corpus called Shiva Dharma which contains these 8 texts, and these texts teach us about lay Shaivism. I mean, you need not have to be a strict follower of the Shaiva religious system, but anybody is accepted to do worship here through this system as taught in the Shiva Dharma. And in this Shiva Dharmottara, through the Shiva Dharmottara, we are getting some details of the writing tradition of manuscript that I wanted to introduce. So before going into it, let us know what is this Shiva Dharma corpus, what is this 8 text. So these are all the 8 texts. What is the importance of this text? I am going back again to the inscriptional evidences. So we have a 899 AD inscriptions that mentions of this Shiva Dharma text. So you have to imagine when an inscription is mentioning of a text, you have to know how important it is. I mean, unless the text was not known, it will not be indicated in the inscription. And also, unless the text is not so important, it will not reach to the level of entering into inscription. That means the text must have been very prevalent during that period. That is why we are having inscriptional evidences. Another Sanskrit inscription from Cambodia, datable to Suryavarman I, attests to the knowledge of Shiva Dharmottara. So it is not only in our land. You have to know that there is a vast inscriptional, that too very interesting Sanskrit inscriptions are there in Cambodia. So we have to know that there's a great amount of inscriptions written there. Some are published, some are still getting published. So please, whenever you have a time, you get introduced to these Cambodian inscriptions too. Because most of these things, the European students are studying. So I am bringing your attention towards this interesting material that you should read. Then similarly, Rajendra Chola Rathakriti public recitations of this text. So Rajendra Chola is mentioning that this Shivadharma text was recited publicly. And inscriptions from Karnataka 1157 also mentions Shivadharma and Shivadharmottara, the first two texts of this corpus. Now, you see the destiny. How many of us know Professor R.C. Hasra? I don't know how many students we know. We don't know our own great scholars. It's very pity that we don't know them. You imagine R.C. Hasra writing two articles in 1952 and 1956 on this Shivadharma and Shivadharmottara. Why I thought of bringing this slide is that we have to get acquaintance with our own scholars. There is no compromise on that. So you have to find out who are the earlier forefathers who contributed, who did lot of. You have to imagine at that time there was no electronic text, no computer. So he must have, because there is only one manuscript available for this complete codex in Calcutta. So he must have gone there, sat there for days together, and he wrote a detailed two articles, one on Shivadharma, another one on Shivadharmottara, and you see, this is an interesting and fairly popular work awaiting publication. He is writing that, awaiting publication, he is mentioning it. And this is 1956, and he must have thought that he will be publishing a detailed article of the text, so that some scholars may get interested, and this will be continued. But unfortunately, we did not turn to this side at all. So from 1956, we had this text was almost, this corpus was almost forgotten by us. We have no much trace, but we have more than 80-90 manuscripts in our own land, 7 or 8 inscriptions mentioning this text. So you can imagine how important it is. Knowing this important only, Hasraji took the trouble and brought out 2 articles, but they were just sleeping because we did not give enough respect to move it further. So then what happened? Recently, a Shivadharma and Shivadharmottara got published from our land, but the most of the work of the Shivadharma corpus is now as projects done by in Netherlands, in Italy, in Austria. So all these places are now fully concentrating with the Shivadharma. Fortunately, one text was left out, so that myself and Ganesh anything. Otherwise, all the 8 texts are being now worked. I think this should be avoided. So we should read our early scholars' work, and if they are giving a hint, so we should take it further, because there are enough manuscript material. Then why should we? There are enough, more than 80 manuscripts available. So it is our responsibility to continue our tradition. If Hasraji has written an article, we should read it, get initiated, try to find out the manuscript. So similarly, many other works are there. So you have to take that interest. Now I am going back, why I am bringing this Shivadharma. So Shivadharmottara chapter 2 is very interesting with regard to the manuscript tradition. The production and copying of the manuscript from a previously existing exemplar. So you imagine the Shivadharmottara is what we discussed. It's a text related to Shaiva religion. It has nothing to do with the manuscript. But you see how important it is giving for the manuscript treasure, for the writing tradition. So it is in chapter 2, it gives a detailed description of how a manuscript should be written. So after writing, how it should be worshipped, and then how it should be announced to the public, then how it should be stored in a library. So all these detailed descriptions are given in what? Shivadharmottara, chapter 2. The correction of the newly produced copy, a public procession that carries the new manuscript to a temple or a space that is sacred in any other form. So imagine one region is interested, or a king is interested in a specific text. So he managed to bring that text to his country, then arranging people to copy it. Once it is completed, then it is taken on a procession so that the public knows that there is a new text arrived in our library. You see how the mechanism was working. So the public were involved in it. Now in a new book comes, how many of us are going and seeing it? But here there is a tradition that when a new manuscript is arriving to their region, it will be copied, then corrections will be done. Then once that is ready, it will be taken on a procession through the road, and how the procession should be taken, what is the role of the king, all those are described here. Then it goes where? Then the donation of the manuscript to a temple. Temple means not just for puja, but it should be kept in the library so that public can come and read. The performances of public readings. Then as soon as a new text comes, it is not only taken through procession. Once the procession is over, somebody will be sitting and reading it to the public. What an interesting system they are having of introducing new text to their public. Then instructions on the daily worship and preservation of the manuscript. So this much details we get in this text Shiva Dharmottara. One or two examples from there. So Adha Vidya Vidher Dados Tacha Jnanam Shivatmakam Tasya Danam Mahadanam Sarva Danottamottamam. So the gift of knowledge is great gift. So there the gift of knowledge is emphasized. Then how a manuscript should be written, you see how precisely the text is giving instruction. Chaturasraihi, Samashirshaihi, Navistulaihi, Nava Krishaihi, Sampurna Avayavaihi, Smigdhaihi, Navi Vichinna Samhadaihi, Matranuswara Samyoga, Prasvadirthadi Lekshidaihi, Nandinagaragair Varnair, Lekhaye Shiva Pustakam. So how the book should be, how the manuscript should be written? One should transcribe the manuscript of Shiva with letters belonging to the Nandinagara script that are quadrangular, aligned in upper part, whose strokes are not too thick, not too thin, whose elements are well filled, smooth, not too disjoint, nor joined together, characterized by correct metrical quantities, anuswaras, and combined consonants with appropriate signs for short and long vowels. How can a manuscript teach you more than this how to write a manuscript? Fascinating. This is of 8th or 9th century text, Shiva Dharmottara telling us. Then once it is written, what should be done? As I explained, Adhava Hastiyanastam Kritva Pustakamaanaye Rajamargena Mahada Nagaranta Pradakshinam. Alternatively, having placed the manuscript on a vehicle led by an elephant, he should lead it through the main royal street in circular direction within the town. So when the manuscript is written, a procession needs to take place. How the procession should take place? Tado Vavitra Nirbhoshaihi Vidya Koshayana Puraye Tada Sambhujaye Vidyam Mahavibhava Vistarehi Kritva Pradakshinam Chante Namet Sarvantikam Bhudaha Vidyakosha Grihasyavi Vidyayedanam Uttamam Bhave Sushobhanam Remyam Hasta Hasta Pramamadaha. So it is also giving instruction how to construct a library, Pustaka Kosha, how it should be made and how the after a procession, how the manuscript should be taken and deposited in the Pustaka Kosha, Pustakadaya or library. Then accompanied by the sound of musical instruments, he should fill with the treasure of knowledge, Vidya Kosha. Afterwards, he should worship knowledge with the abundant substances, and having made a circumambulation from left to right, the person in charge should at the end go with all his members. So the book, the manuscript written is taken on a procession, brought to the Pustaka Kosha or Pustakadaya, deposited there, and a veneration is performed. So what we have learned for Shiva Dharmottara, you should not forget. So this should go into our mind. The Shiva Dharma corpus, Asra's article, then Shiva Dharmottara second chapter, how it is describing a manuscript should be written, what are all the rules to be followed. Then once it is written, how it should be taken in a position and deposited in a library. So this much information the Shiva Dharmottara is giving to us. We also get such Devi Purana, how many of us know? It's having 5,500 verses. Really waiting for a good critical edition. This is not a bad cheap. For this also Devi Purana, Hasra had written a long article. The Devi Purana also is giving instruction. I brought this verse because it is giving a specific instrument. A writing desk also it is mentioning. You can see Pustakastaranam Dattva Supramanam Sushobhanam Yandram Rekshasanam Jeva Chandasanam Adhaviva Vidyadanam Sushilasya Dattam Bhavati Rajyadam. So, by giving it, not only manuscript is given, a necessary stand for reading also is given as a gift. So, you can get that detail from the Devi Purana. I mentioned the Pustakalaya or Pustaka Kosha. Here is a reference coming from the 9th century inscription from Cambodia. And you can see in the second line, the inscription is mentioning of a Pustakashrama. So, it is mentioning here. The Hiranyaviji of trained intellect who knew created this library, Hrudoyam Pustakashrama, filled with the books beneficial for teachers and students belonging to his disciples. So this is a 9th century Cambodian inscription is mentioning of a Pustakashrama, and you will see how is the Pustakashrama at present look like. So this is what mentioned in the inscription, and near to that this library is still there, but this is its present condition. Then, how this, we have so much of manuscript pressure, how these were happening. So, as I told you earlier, when there is a region interested in one manuscript, they get it, copied it, they will return it and preserve the one which is copied. Similarly, text, not only in our land, the manuscripts were gone outside, and you can see a history of copying to text here. This again comes from a Cambodian inscription 842. Krishnani. So you have to, this is not a literary text, this is an inscription. You see how beautiful it is. Krishnani Shabda Vidyadi Shastrani Sakala Kalaha Shaivancha Gauravam Yogam Brahma Jeshta Davapayaha Vidya Sandhatyavichitye. This is what I have given in the caption of the lecture also. Vidya Sandhatyavichitye Krishna Vrittincha Kashikam Parameshwara Purvancha Yo Alikhat Shiva Samhitam. He received all disciples. He received all the disciples. So there are two brothers. The elder brother is mentioning of his younger brother who copied two texts here. So he is appreciating him. Krishnani Shabda Vidya Shastrani Sakala Kalaha. He received all the disciplines, beginning with that of grammar from his elder brother, as well as all the arts and the forms of yoga taught by Shiva and by the Guru Patanjali, so that there should be no interruption in the transmission of knowledge. Vidya Sandhatyavichitye. He wrote out the whole Kashika Bhakti and the text Shiva Samhita, preceded by the qualification Parameshwara. So it's Parameshwara Samhita. So a brother is mentioning of another brother who wrote these two. Wrote means what? He copied. So the text from our land going to Cambodia, and then again it is getting copied, and we have a inscriptional evidence for that. So this way, text were copied again and again from region to region. That's why we are having so much literary pressure in us. And here is one example of a manuscript going from here, and we have inscriptional evidence of its copying. The Pancharatra Agama, Paushkara Samhita prescribes that every temple must have a shrine of learning with a library. So the text is Pancharatra Agama, it's an Agama, it is supposed to be ritual, but it is mentioning of a library also. Two epigraphs from Nagaraja temple in Chidambaram provide details of the library named Saraswati Bandara and assigned lands for maintaining it. The library had 20 learned scholars as his staff. This is also again from two epigraphs we know. Temple were well acquainted with this treasure of knowledge. An inscription from the Ranganatha temple in Srirangam dated 1269 AD during the reign of King Veera Ramanatha mentions a library named Saraswati Pustaka Bhandara. So these are all temple related libraries. So as I discussed earlier, as I mentioned earlier, manuscript used to be copied and then stored in the temple libraries, Pustaka Kosha. Migration of man, this is what another interesting thing. So a text written in North reaching to Trivandrum, a text written in Trivandrum reaching to north or even up to Kashmir. How this is very interesting to see how this transmission happens when there is no internet, mobile, but so they manage to transmit their knowledge. In ancient India, the late institutions of scholarly contacts like debates and visits to courts and places of pilgrimage led to the migration of manuscripts from one corner of the country to the other. Appaya Dikshita's works written in Tamil Nadu are found in Kashmir, and the great Kashmirian classics are today preserved in Kerala. The Tandraloka of Abhinav Gupta in Trivandrum Manuscript Library that provides quite interesting readings. So you have to know that Tandraloka is written somewhere in north. We have a manuscript Trivandrum. Alexis Anderson, one of the great Shaiva scholars, is working on it. So I provided a manuscript of Tandraloka to him, and he told me the readings he got from the manuscript of Kerala are quite interesting. So you have to know that when you are working on a text, don't limit the manuscripts of that region only. So you have to widely look through it and collect maximum materials, then you can produce a good text. Shivadharma commentary. I mentioned earlier the Shivadharma. So the Shivadharma written is somewhere in north. There is a commentary available in Kerala, and that is the only place we get only one manuscript known for this. Now we found two more, but only in Kerala we know of a commentary. In no other regions we know of commentary of Shivadharma or Shivadharmotara. And this commentary is quite interesting. So you see how a text connects with the commentary. A text written in North India, commentary written in Kerala in South. Then when we put together, we are able to understand the text. So you see the Shivadharmotara text. Purartham Panchamam Karyam Shivasya Vadabhi Griham Khadhastam Ashtatirtham Va Dar Pattari Nirmidam Tatra Vrindari Shailam Va Sthapaye Vidhipad Shivam. This is what the Shivadharmotara telling, but it's a bit difficult to understand what exactly it means. But when you read the commentary, Puraya Urdhavartim Charamam Panchamam Puram, so it is giving a layer of temples. You have to know that we are talking of monastery system. So it's ashrama, matha. So in the matha, you have layers of 3 or 5. And if it is 3 tier, where to put the temple, where you have to live, where you will be doing the teaching. If it is 5 layer, how to divide that? Now you will see, that Shivasya Vadadi Griham Karyam. Vadadi Griham Purakaram Griham Ityartha. We were having great difficulty to understand what this is Vadadi Griham means. But when we read the commentary, it gives us some light. That Shivasya Vadadi Griham Karyam. So it's nothing but a shrine that you make for Shiva is Vadadi Griham. Vadadi Griham Purakaram Griham Ityartha. Tribhauma Pakshehu. If you are planning a 3-tier temple, Tribhauma Pakshehu, Pradhamad Purad Urdhvam Yakhyan Mandavam, Dvidiyad Urdhvam Valavi Griham Iti Drishtavyam. So Tribhauma Pakshehu, if it is 3, Pradhamad Purad Urdhvastam. So I am giving you a picture here. So you see how interesting it will be to connect a place in architecture, a text and its commentary. So unless you read this commentary, it will be very difficult to understand. So here is 1 layer, 2nd layer, and 3rd layer. You can see the temple. Now you see the text. Tribhauma Pakshehu, when you are having 3 tier, as you see in the picture. Pradhamad Purad Urdhvastam Yakhyan Mandava. So this is the Yakhyan Mandava where you will be teaching activities will go on. Dvidiyad Urdhvam, that is on top of it. Dvidiyad Urdhvam Valavi Griham Iti Drashtavyam. So that is the temple, and you can see there is a temple. So it is interesting to connect the monastery. So if you are interested in the architecture, you can easily connect the architectural piece with the text and with the commentary. You see how? So what I am trying to say is a text written in north, a text written in commentary, a architectural piece available somewhere in north. When we put together, we get a very interesting picture. Then similarly, the transmissions were very effective also. One famous poet of Narayana Bhatta of Kerala. So he wrote a text, and this text had some criticism outside Kerala. So when he, on the criticism, he is sending a message to one who criticized. So in that he is including a verse, Yushmadhikkaru Kamadeva Vijaye Vyaleji Kakshakrama Tam Drishtum Vrishamutsuga Vayamada Samprekshatam Sampratam Yushmad Daksha Vijakshanotti Padavi Samprekshanena Kshanad Asmagam Khalu Buddhi Shuddhi Rudiyat Ityesha Tatrashaya. I am very much interested to have the manuscript. What you have written, so I am very much interested to have a copy. You have written the counter arguments in the Kamadeva Vijaya. We are extremely anxious to see it. It may therefore be immediately sent to us. So that you see how interestingly the transmission is happening. The idea is that seeing the method of argumentation set forth by the like you, we may get our thoughts clarified at once. So here the author is sending a message to one who criticized his work, asking for a copy of his work, that through his text. So the transmission was very, very effective. So when scholars wanted, they used to send a message even through a work and get a copy of it. So this is why the text transmission or the manuscript transmission, they are happening very effectively. And similarly here you will see a text called Brihad Kalopala. Somebody in Nepal asking someone to copy that in Varanasi. See, presently the manuscript is in Nepal, but he is sending a mission to Varanasi, arranging a copy and then taking back that to Kathmandu. So you can see Bhatta Sri Shaivacharyasya Amrutamitrena Varanasyam Likhyapita. So it is a mission, Likhyapita. So you see how interestingly now Nepal is having so many manuscripts, but all there, they are sending missionary here, they send to people here, getting copied and taking back. So how the transmission there, the manuscript transmission there, very interesting this way. And we have, because of this transmission happening all over India and outside India, we have so much pressure happen. If they were lazy, if they were not copying, we should not have this many manuscripts. So they took the trouble to copy the manuscript again and again. That way we have so much pressure in our land, and you can see so much manuscripts still available in several manuscripts libraries all over India. Nearly 3.5 million they are telling now. So interestingly, these manuscripts are waiting for you all. So now I will conclude with a few points mentioning how many more pressure, how many more manuscripts still remain in this manuscript collection waiting for publication and your attention. So it is your duty to explore that further. So we will not be able to go discuss that in detail, but I am going to give 2-3 examples, and in 5-10 minutes I will conclude that. There are still several texts that remain in manuscripts waiting for our attention. Let us see the status of Agamas. I thought of putting a text Vahula and the science text. What is the status of it? Whether still we have manuscripts on these fields. Let us see. So I am taking the Shaivagama thing. So you see I am giving very important, most important of Shaiva related text here. So apart from what I gave it in color, all are still unpublished. So anything we want to read, we have to depend on the manuscript. That is the condition. So we may think that with the Shaivagama many texts are published, many articles are written, but we have to really know that source texts are still not published. This is the status. And I am taking you further to the text called Sarva Jnanottara Agama. This is a very important text of early period. So this text, again, this text is mentioned in the Cambodian inscription. So why I am bringing this is, when a text is mentioned in the inscription, you can know how important it is. A text, Sarva Jnanottara, written in our land, moving to Cambodia. Not only that, then it is having a place in their inscriptions. So you can imagine how important. But what is the status? We have 31 chapters, hardly 3 or 4 chapters of this text is published, remaining are still unpublished. This is what the condition. Then not knowing this text, what will be our condition? Earlier I have shown you a picture of a monastery having 3 layers. No? So I said monastery or matha or ashrama. But we may think, when we think of ashrama, we think that whenever the Shaiva religion or a system is starting, it starts along with the ashrama system. No. So if you are going to study a history of the monasteries, history of ashramas, if you rely on only the printed text, you will be writing of what you see, But you have to know, when you are trying to understand the history, you have to know what was there really. Then only the history will be complete. So you will see this text, it is explaining how a ascetic, how a monastery person should live, should have his life. So here it is, it's the long chapter of his daily routines, where he should eat, what he should eat, where he should sleep, all is given in a chapter. I am just going to take you this, where he should sleep is said here. So it is not a fixed or a constructed monastery mentioned here at all. It is a self-made dwelling he will be having. Trihasto Khala Bhushalye, Shuchi Shuddhe Mahidale, etc. So here he is making his own small dwelling on the land, and he is dwelling there. So we are not having a constructed vada. As soon as we see a sannyasi, what will come to our mind? He is having a monastery, he belongs to a monastery. So this was not the early system. If you read the text only, we will know. What the text says, on a piece of ground that is pure, where he has dug down to remove shards in the earth to a depth of 3 cubits, he should previously have considered a place of recitation equipped with all the requesting characteristics. It should be equipped with the handboys and flex staffs. The yogin should sleep there. So with all these details, what we understand, in this text, we encounter a simple, self-made dwelling place for an ascetic. This suggests that during the period of this text, around the 7th century AD, there were no structured staying places specifically meant for a Shaiva ascetic. So, if you are reading, imagine you are writing a history of Shaiva ascetic. If you don't read this text, what will be the result? You are not going to give a clear picture of that history, because we will not know this at all. So if you depend on the printed text, your history will be halfly written. So never do that. So whenever you are doing a research, don't depend only purely in the printed materials. So you have to go to catalogs and try to see whether there are manuscripts available for your text. If so, kindly include that also in your studies. Otherwise, your study will not be complete. Going back to my first slide, so even in Shaiva text itself, there is so much to be done. They all are remaining in manuscripts, and if you don't consult the manuscript, our study will not be complete. Now I am going to take, some of you may be interested with the science text. So here is a text by my grandfather, K.V. Sharma. So I fully worked with him for this. So science text in Sanskrit took us 3-4 years of visiting various libraries and private collections. He brought a survey of science text available in manuscript in Kerala and Tamil Nadu. So only Kerala and Tamil Nadu is covered here. Tamil Nadu is covered here, not other regions. That itself you will see what is the outcome. So these are all the sections that we covered: astronomy, astrology, medicine, veterinary science, chemistry, physics, botany and architecture. These are all the areas we covered. So what we did is we did a survey of manuscripts available for these subject areas. You will see what is the outcome. So we found nearly 12,244 manuscripts in this survey. The number of texts we found is around 3,473. And if you see the printed text of this 3,473 is only 229. So these are all the total manuscript. These are all the total text we identified in this all subjects, 8 subjects. And when you see the printed material available is 229 only. All remaining texts are waiting for you. There is so much to be done. So if you are interested in mathematics, try to find what is they are not published. Then you can do a edition of it and bring it to the public, bring it to the scholars. Because we have so much pressure, It's only 229. Going back again, what I said, if you are writing a history of astronomy, and imagine if you are depending only on the 229, are we doing justice to that? You will not be. We will not be giving a clear picture. So you have to depend on other material. So you have great responsibility in front of you. Similarly, I thought of showing you just one. So I mentioned the Kerala Brahmin tradition, Vedic tradition. There is a Vidya Shaka called Vapunga. That's only available in Kerala, nowhere else. Only some 8 to 9 families belonging to that. But their manuscript treasure is very rich. They are having so many texts, nearly 18 texts pertaining to this. and what I gave in color only is published. Remaining all still remaining unpublished. Shilpa ji is here. I think thanks that she is all the way took the trouble to come for this lecture. She is very much interested and gave a good contribution for the Atharva Veda. Sometime we can turn it into Yajurveda also. I think it will be interesting to make some prayogas from here, and because it's a unique thing, you know. You know very well. I will show you the next slide. So among these texts, only 2-3 are published. You see what is the publication? You can see on the page who all have published it. So apart from the one I underlined, all are by Western scholars who got published, but thanks to them because they have shown us what is Vadhuda. They are great trouble. You imagine coming from all the way, not knowing our language, having difficulty with their food habits, staying somewhere, convincing the owner of the manuscript collection, taking a copy, then working on it. So that way they have given a great contribution. But don't you think we should also contribute? No? We have to. So I am talking of only Vadhuda. Similarly, there are several Vedic texts also. If you take, there are several shakhas, texts are still laid unpublished. So now, if you want to know of Vadhuda in a clear picture, you have to study the whole corpus. Then only we will be able to give a clear picture of who are our Vadhudas. So this is once again the publications of Vadhudas. And now Vadhuda, when I mentioned, there is a Grihya Sutra for Vadhuda Grihya Sutra, and a critical edition is being prepared by Kajihara in Kyoto in Japan. So Vadhuda Grihya Sutra, we are not even having a printed edition with us so far. There is a, by Chaube had printed a Vadhuda Vritti, or another prayoga of the Grihya Sutra, but the original Grihya Sutra we don't have it in print, and some Kajihara in Kyoto is preparing that. So when we have so much pressure, what should we do? Don't you think we have to preserve it? Or is preserving only is enough? Just having digitized copy and having it online enough? Not sufficiently enough. So whatever we can do, whichever area we are interested, everyone may not be able to interest in Vedic thing, but you have great scope. So whichever subject, even gardening you are interested, you find you are a Sanskrit student, you find a related text in gardening, and then you work on it. So everyone can contribute. So don't think that you have to reach a level, then only you can start working. Don't think. I mean, this is what European scholars are teaching and following. Their students from MA itself, they start to publish, write, So you have to have that system. So don't hesitate to start something. So you pick up a very small text that is interesting for you. You make a group of 3-4, and then you have seniors here who can consult. So this lecture should not just end up with a tea or coffee, but we have to take it further. So what should we do? Sambhushya sadapatyavat paragarat rakhyam cha sukshetravat samshodhyam vrinidankavat pradinam vikhyam cha sanmitravat badhyam badhyavarashnadham dridagunaihi smaryam harer namavat naimam sidati pustakam khalugalapyetat gurunam vachaha. We should not ignore. We should not just spoil these manuscripts. We have great responsibility of preserving them. So how to preserve? Sambhushya sadapatyavat paragarat liksham jasukshetavat. Adorn it as if it were a dear child. Protect it from the hands of others as you would a fertile field. If you have a land, do you just ignore it? No, you will protect it with a fence. Keep it clean as if it were a wounded limb. So if it is a wounded, you will clean it every day, maintain it. So you have to do like that. Take time to look at it every day like a good friend. So friend you will be meeting similarly. Don't put the manuscript in a place and just sleep. So you have to consult it often. Take it up tight with the firm cords as if it were a prisoner. So a prisoner is tied. Similarly you have to tie and keep it. Think of it all the times as if it were the name of God. A manuscript will clearly never perish if treated in this way, so say the wise. Naimam Sitati Pustakam Khalukadapyevat Gurunam Vachaha. So just as part of this preservation, we have a small project through my office, Echo Francis District Moria, with the support of other institutions. So we are having a small project presently running in Thrissur in Kerala. You all are welcome to go to this project place and see what is happening. So what we are trying to do is there are nearly 250 private collections in Kerala. So I was telling you that Vedic families there, they all were having manuscripts. So we thought of initiating a project where we convince the owners. So this manuscript could be protected. We make a digitization, a detailed cataloging, and a copy is given to the owner also, so that it gets preserved. And this project is happening in the famous Brahmastra Matham, which Ambarish also was mentioning. So there is a Vedic institution there, and they have a Vedic research center also. So we are collaborating with this Vedic research center for this digitization project, which is called as Deepika. And we visit places where the manuscript collection is there, and then we see the manuscript, and if the owner is willing, we try to discuss with them. If they are giving permission, we take a digitization, we prepare a digitization of it and preserve it for the future generation. So this is one of our visit to the village called Parnyad. So this is the only village where we find Jainiya Sama Brahmins. This is the only place. And I was so happy because I was looking for a Somayaga Prayoga of Jainiyas. Because we have Avastambiya, Bodhayana, all the Yajurveda Prayogas. But I have not seen how for the Samavedins, what is the Prayoga. And while going through it, I found a manuscript of Jainiya Somayaga Prayoga. So I was very much delighted to have that. So our purpose is to bring all this to you. That is our responsibility to bring it, and this knowledge should transmit to you also, and then you will transmit to the next generation. So this is the way we collect. So we go and we meet people, and you can see how it is kept like this. But we then even provide assistance for organizing it. Even furniture repair we are providing, and whatever is assistance repair we are doing, and we are trying to do whatever we can with the limitation. But I think the slow process, because it takes time. I think especially some interesting private collections will be done. All the Vadhuta manuscripts are done, sir. So we were able to get permission from them. So the Vadhuta manuscripts are presently being done. Yes. And now you see that when we talk of transmission, this also we should remember. So there is a text called Brahmashambhu Padhani. So when an Acharya of a Matha passed on the responsibility for its administration to his successor. So administration is passed on to the next successor. So when it is given to the next successor, the Acharya often emphasized the importance of maintaining the Pustakalaya or manuscript collection and of transmitting and preserving the tradition of knowledge. So while giving the position, you see what he is telling? Idam sthanaviyam vrittihi iyam pustaka samhatihi amivai bharaniyastu dasat karma kadaschanaha edat sarvam maya tubhyam dattamadhyatvaya vija palaniyam tadha samyak yatha asmabihi prapalitam. The way I maintained it, you also have the responsibility to maintain it. So not only the money and wealth, when you are passing on, it's not only money and wealth, but also the library, also the wealth of knowledge. This knowledge, what I am having, I am transmitting it to you, and you should transmit to the next generation. So I am going back to the inscription that I mentioned earlier. Krishnani Shabda Vidyani Shastrani Sakala Kalaha Shaivancha Gauravam Yogam Bhavrujyeta Advapayaha Vidyasantatya Vichityai Krishnam Vrittinja Kashikam Parameshwara Purvanja Yolika Shivasandhika. So all this he did. He took the trouble of copying for what? For Vidyasantatya Vichityai. The transmission should go on without any interruption. So we are taking a pledge that whatever we are having, we are going to transmit. The teachers have transmitted to you. Now you have the responsibility to work and transmit to the next generation with the hope that we all will continue without any interruption. Let me conclude here. Thank you for listening. Thank you very much.
Professor Sharma and friends. I am extremely delighted to listen to this lecture, and I must say that I learned so many things for the first time. We all work on manuscripts of different types, different subjects, but we are almost ignorant of the tradition in South India, particularly in Kerala, which has been preserved very carefully for the last many centuries and still they do that. Whatever happens, they continue the tradition. It's a tradition of Guru and Shishya, father and son. And they are so orthodox and they are so religious that they think that the preservation of manuscripts, reading them and following the dharma is their duty. It was a great coincidence that I had been to Kerala in 1975 when the great Somayaga was performed. It was arranged by Professor Fish Tal of University of California, Berkeley, and Professor Asko Fardal of Helsinki. And we had a team led by my teacher, Dr. C.D. Kashipur, who happened to be a person scholar here attached to this institute. And we spent some 15 days there for the first time watching the Somayaga. We were not allowed to enter the inside area, but we could see all that. And there were hundreds of scholars gathered. It was filmed, and the volume based on that performance has been published in the Tagore Family. So this way, foreigners work. It's not that Indians do not work, but there are many restrictions, many limitations as well. Funding is the main problem. Manpower is another problem. And thirdly, genuine interest is also another problem. We should be grateful to our predecessors, gurus, like Professor V. Raghavan, even before that, a foreign scholar, a French scholar, Louis Radu, who for the first time made a survey of various Vedic schools in India. That was a pioneering work. And after that, Professor Radu, he was a versatile scholar. He also worked on Asia, Asian studies, extreme Orient and so on. So he also worked on that. And then Professor V. Raghavan, when I started doing my PhD, I read one of his books, very good book, where he made a survey of Vedic schools in India. And then he himself traveled a lot far and wide and collected information of Vedic traditions, Vedic schools and Vedic manuscripts. As rightly, Professor Sharma rightly said, there is so much work. There are so many manuscripts. Our teacher, Dr. Karim Nandekar, used to say that what we have, which is available, is just a very small portion of the manuscript. Still there are a number of manuscripts, known and unknown and unpublished. I have spent several decades doing the same thing. First, working on Vedic manuscripts, and I am grateful to my parents, Alma Mater, for giving me the opportunity to work on Atharva Veda, the ritual text, the Kaushika Sutra, the Darila Bhashya, published for the first time by Dear Maharashtra Vidyapith in 1972 when I started my PhD. And then we worked on another interesting text called Kaushika Paddhati, which was published in 1982. And still there are so many prayogas. Fortunately, there are some also few scholars like Dr. Shilpa Samanta and Amrish Kare and Nirmala Kulkarni and Julieta Rotaru India who are interested in this way. So this way, we need not be pessimistic about that. उत्पत्स्यते स्त्रीलोकोऽपि समानधर्मा कालो निर्वदित फुलाचि वक्तुः. That is what we should do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for this wonderful and in view of approaching summer, we arranged for this Ikshurasa. भवतां व्याख्यानं मधुरतरं वर्तते. And there are the students of Indology as well, so you must have learned in my class that this Yajnavaraha who built the temple of Bantesrai, who was the minister of do you know the name of the king? Rajendra Verma. So he has referred to that inscription also, so we know that how these traditions of manuscripts and how the knowledge goes from one place to another, not only in India but in whole Asian continent, we can say that. So I am very thankful to you for giving this wonderful lecture, and I request Professor Nirmala Kulkarni to deliver the presidential address.
Professor Gurukul, Professor Sharma, Dr. Benjamin and others. I am very much thankful to Professor Sharma for giving such a wonderful lecture. Many new things he, especially I learned. One of my students had worked on when I was introduced to manuscriptology in I think 91 or 92. I was the first student of manuscriptology in CSS and at that time I had read that in some Puranas there are certain passages which are of course interpolated after 10th century or so, how to write a manuscript. And I gave this topic to one of my students for my MPhil, and she had, of course, at that time I did not know the Shiva-dharma manuscripts, but she had collected material from all printed texts. Like Devi Purana, I think also she has compiled from Hemadri. Yes, from the Chintamani various passages. So she had compiled, and it was certainly very interesting that Puranas divide danas into Shravana Dana and Saraswata Dana. Shravana Dana is how to deliver Vedas to Vedic students over transmission, and Saraswata Dana is how to donate manuscripts. Of course, as he has rightly pointed out, that the tradition, especially he spoke about the Shiva Mathas, how they are constructed and how they are indicating the mystery, etc. Similarly, we come across writing of manuscripts from Buddhist and Vedic way, but it was transmitted in the Hindu religion as well. And in many Puranas, as he has shown Shiva-dharma manuscripts, he has spoken from Shiva-dharma manuscripts. Similarly, we get information from many Puranas, especially Vishnu-dharma, Uttara Purana, etc. also has that we should write manuscript, how to make procession of it, and how to donate it. And she has collected, Shami Purana, she has collected many passages from various texts, and she has written, of course it is in Marathi. So I am very much thankful, and especially I generally hesitate to go to various institutes after my retirement, but I am very thankful to Bangladesh for giving me this honor of sharing the session and to listen to very nice lecture. Thank you very much.
नमस्ते। अद्यतनीयस्य कार्यक्रमस्य आयोजनार्थं येषां साहाय्यं प्राप्तं तान् प्रति आभारं प्रकटयितुम् अत्र स्थितोऽहम्। सर्वप्रथमम् अद्य अस्माकं कृते एकी ज्ञानालयद्वाराणि उद्घाटितानि तान् डॉक्टर शर्मा महोदयान् प्रति कृतज्ञाः वयम्। तथा च अध्यक्षपदं घोषयित्वा कार्यक्रमस्मिन् गुणाधारं कार्यक्रमत्याः डॉक्टर निर्मला कुलकर्णी महोदयाः कृते आभारप्रकटनार्थं शब्दाः अपि न समर्थः। तथा संस्कृतजगति ख्यातिप्राप्तानां डॉक्टर श्रीकान्त बहुलकर महोदयानाम् आगमनेन कार्यक्रमस्य माहात्म्यं वर्धितम्। अतः ते अपि धन्यवादाः। यैः विना न कोऽपि कार्यक्रमः भवितुम् अर्हति तान् श्रोतॄन् प्रति अपि अस्माकं कृतज्ञतां प्रकटयामि। अन्ततः येषां नामनिर्देशः न जातः तेषामपि सर्वेषां साहाय्यकर्तॄणां भूरि भूरि धन्यवादाः। अनेन एव अस्य कार्यक्रमस्य समापनं सूचयित्वा विरमामि। धन्यवादाः।
So I should also thanks Ambarish and others here to give me a chance to come and meet you and exchange something. But you remember that I am among you, not only not actually. So it was just leaving out. Thank you. Thank you.
आपल्याला बघी सगळ्यांकडे आली आहे ज्याच्यातून